Hello and welcome to the Discomfort Zone, the podcast that gets you comfortable with the uncomfortable. Today's show, we have Dan Strauss, aka the Raspberry Ape, and we get down and dirty about his need to train naked, wear some Daisy Duke hot pants, and mildly strangle a few men.
Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This place is incredible.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah. James done a great job. Podcast studio, Launch Pod Studios.
This is the nicest. I've done hundreds of podcasts in my time. This is by far the nicest studio I've ever been in. Really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And hopefully some nice company.
Yeah.
And big tick.
He's
going
like,
on
yeah,
there
come
for
on.
James.
Exactly.
It's like someone who runs their own podcast and like nerding out over all of the equipment. That almost doesn't care about the rest of it.
I have to say, you guys talked as soon as you walked in, and I think the first 5 minutes, you asked a question about a number and a code, and I was like, that is me checked out of here for at least 10 minutes.
It's great.
That's it. It's the details that matter, isn't
Exactly,
it? The
yeah.
details. So we've got Dan Strauss, aka the Raspberry Ape, on the podcast. Now, lots of people know who you are because you've done amazing things in a number of areas. But in my head, I've got a friend for a very long time, but also a high-level jiu-jitsu player, competitor at the highest level. You do broadcasting, you do commentating, you do podcasting, you do stone lifting, grip master, storyteller. All those things. There's so much to talk about. But how do you describe yourself? What would you say to
I think from now on, that's going to be how I describe myself. That's going to be my Instagram bio by the time I get home.
Yeah.
But that's about right. I kind of, first and foremost, like sort of identify myself as a grappler. I feel like that's like what I was. That's the first introduction into the first thing that I felt that I had a purpose in, that I felt that this is really for me. When I grew up, I never really attached to anything until, I was in my mid-teens and found jiu-jitsu. So that first and foremost. And then, through that journey, got passionate about strength training with the purpose of, strength training to be a stronger grappler. I was very small and skinny when I first started training, and so the strength training or being stronger, the whole idea of being stronger was something that was really interesting to me, or appealing to me. And then I've sort of become passionate about strength training irrespective. There was for many years, even though I was considered a strength training enthusiast, I would have said I wouldn't continue strength training if I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu. It was purely for that. And now if I was unable to do jiu-jitsu, or at whatever point I'm no longer able to do jiu-jitsu, I'll continue to pursue strength as sort of a separate avenue. And then my broadcast stuff, so I do commentary for MMA and for grappling, and have a podcast which we do different topics, but mainly combat sports, jiu-jitsu and MMA. That's it. So about right.
So, and you said grappler as opposed to jiu-jitsu player or artist or fighter, or grappler is the thing that you really identify with?
Yeah, I think that for me, jiu-jitsu, for me personally, I feel like jiu-jitsu is like being one of the most modern forms of grappling. Like grappling is a highly human, primitive, arguably the most primitive thing that we do as humans, along with maybe running. Like running's number one, is the most intuitive, primitive, evolutionary thing we do. And I'd say grappling's number two. We've been doing that for as long as, before we were humans. And then if you look at every culture in the world, basically, a lot of them have been lost. But essentially at one time, every culture in the world had a form of usually their own folk style of wrestling or grappling, anywhere you go in the world. And it's where actually... we might get onto it later, but like stone lifting is another thing that sort of every culture at one point lifted stones.
Yes.
And sort of, so that I feel like they go a little bit hand in hand. So there's loads of, and a lot of people, for example, don't know that England had or the UK had lots of folk style wrestling, be it like Scottish backhold wrestling or, catch wrestling, which was more modern, or Cornish wrestling. All of these different areas had their own folk styles of wrestling, and a lot of them have been lost to time, and a few places around the world still have those folk styles. But yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the most modern style of grappling, and for that reason, its growth plates haven't fused yet, for lack of a better term. It's still in its adolescence, which means that whereas a judo or a sambo or a Greco-Roman wrestling maybe has very much a very distinctive style. If you look at wrestling, and I may be wrong, maybe wrestlers who are super into the sport can see the small differences being made in the same way that like boxing style will change over 50 years. But I think the speed that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a sport and as a style changes is so dramatic, literally over a number of years. Okay, so leg locks are suddenly super, super popular, and now the way that people are passing guard or people are doing takedowns, wrestling is super popular now, and nobody really knows what's going to be popular in a couple of years' time. For that reason, I see jiu-jitsu as a culmination of, because it's so young still, it's happy to draw from every other style. So for me, jiu-jitsu is a term that describes all styles of grappling, but a lot of people have contention with that, saying, "Oh no, if they're grappler that doesn't do jiu-jitsu, they go, no, jiu-jitsu, you pull guard, you wear pajamas, and all of that stuff." So just to make it easy, I say grappler.
Okay.
That's a really long answer.
That's brilliant. I love.
It's a really long
answer
to you're a grappler, right?
There's so many different ways to go with this.
Yeah.
Some people wear pajamas. You don't. You wear denim all the time. What's with the denim?
The denim thing.
The denim thing.
Yeah. I don't like the gi. I used to train the gi for a long time. Up until like brown belt. I'd say maybe purple brown belt, when I just started to have more success no gi. Even though I was training more in the gi, I was having more success no gi, which then leads to you doing more no gi because you're asked to do seminars and more competitions and
just
stuff.
for the people who aren't so familiar with grappling, so gi versus no gi, the difference is what you're wearing and how you...
Basically the only difference, I mean, can be slight difference in rules, but that's sort of becoming more similar now. But essentially, gi is the kimono. It's like if you think of someone doing judo, they're wearing a big jacket, big trousers, you can grab onto it. That's the gi. And then no gi is without that. So you can kind of wear anything
naked
within reason. Oh, the naked thing, that's a whole nother topic.
Okay,
that's
good topic though.
Okay, if you want to talk about the naked thing,
Let's talk about naked
you know the word gym comes from, it means naked.
Really?
As in like GYM?
As in gymnasium.
Right, okay.
As in GYM, yeah, exactly. It comes from the Greek gymnos, which means naked, because the Greeks, when they were trained in a gymnasium, they would always be naked. It was the rule. You had to be naked. You weren't allowed to train with clothes on. Yeah.
Why? Huh. Why? What do you think about this?
People don't exactly know. We can't ask any of them from 2,500 years ago or whatever, but I've seen...
Because some people wear some fucking horrific outfits to the gym, okay? I've seen some weird get-ups, and maybe it's to stop
usually it's me, to be fair.
Usually you either get two things, right? In my gym, you get men who wear wife beaters that are so low they cut under their nipples, in which case you think, why are you even wearing that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Or you get like very attractive women in beautiful sets, bit too much out there, and then you get all these men thinking, God, don't look, including me, who also looks, and then they look.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just everyone's on a level playing field. You can't say, well, those are flattering trousers.
You're
just
I
all
feel
look
like,
the same.
yeah, exactly. You know what? There's something about being in uniform. I mean, a lot of people don't like it, but it means that when everyone's naked, you're stripped backwards. It doesn't matter what nice jewelry you have or what nice clothes you have. Everyone's on the same level playing field. I think the reason was probably, I don't know if it was homoerotic.
Probably.
Obviously, the Greeks
they did
are
a lot
someone.
of,
The Greeks are known
sexing.
for that. But I believe I saw an account where like someone tripped over their loincloth fell off, and they tripped over it and hurt himself during a race once. Like, clothes, no more clothes. We wrestle naked.
Someone
from
found
now
a very
on.
easy excuse to be like
Health and
anything.
safety has always been an issue.
exactly.
HR.
And
So-
you can grab life by the balls as well.
Exactly.
Pretty physically.
Exactly. But yeah, so sorry, just a tangent there.
No, good
when saying
tangent.
about clothes and the gym. So yeah. So gi, go back to what gi and no gi is.
Denim and gi, yeah.
So gi is your jacket, trousers. No gi is shorts and either a tight, what we call rash guard, or a t-shirt, usually a rash guard. So I prefer no gi. Once I got my black belt, I basically haven't trained in the gi since. So like really steered away from it. And there'll be some people out there who would tell you that gi jiu-jitsu is the only true jiu-jitsu and no gi is not jiu-jitsu. It's submission wrestling or something completely different. But I mean, it's just semantics really. But for me, no gi, I just prefer it. I like the purity of it. I do feel that no gi, I wear, tight shorts, short shorts and a rash guard. It's essentially being naked. It's without the inappropriateness of being naked, but functionally you're not getting anything caught, nothing's being grabbed, and it allows you to use the body and the body alone. So the gi you utilize and sort of, without getting too much into technical stuff about jiu-jitsu, they're starting to get a point maybe like even as long as maybe 10 years ago, where the modern gi game was starting to be developed, and there was sort of an over-reliance and an overuse and an exploitation almost of the gi. Sort of anything that you give someone, they will eventually, over enough time, be able to game that into an advantage.
Right.
So jiu-jitsu was starting to look what I felt was a bit bizarre. It was instead of just you're grabbing the collar, you're grabbing the sleeve, you're grabbing the trouser. You're grabbing the lapel and you're wrapping it around and you're taking
like
these
Keenan
crazy.
Cornelius's
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
lapel
You know,
guards
like
and-
reverse Della worm guard and all of this crazy stuff. And I just felt, and some people go, well, oh, you're just not keeping up with the modern geek. I'm like, yeah, that's fair, but I just don't like it. It just like does not sit well with me personally. I prefer where it's just the human body versus the human body, and I can use your wrist, your head, your neck, your arm, your leg, and I feel like it's a lot more pure. I feel that we are always with our body, we're not always with the gi, so no gi is just what I prefer. And then you asked me about denim, the whole thing with denim. Yeah, the denim thing was for a while, if you want the actual story of the whole denim thing, because it's a treat. Like a lot of people ask me, like, do you really train in denim? Like, I really do train in denim.
I was
like,
curious when you came today, like, would you be wearing denim?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how
Like,
much is denim here?
it's summer. It's a horrible day today, so I've got jeans on. But usually I'm wearing shorts. Like, I'm not in denim 24 hours a day, but I'll put it on to train usually. Depends what I'm training. Different things you need wear different things. But I started wearing denim when I was doing. This is all going to sound so bizarre to someone who doesn't get it. When I was doing horseshoe bending. Because when you're bending horseshoes, I feel like every single thing I say I need to explain.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
So
Don't worry, we'll put a glossary of terms like in the.
The thing is, they're all exactly as it says in the tin. So I was bending horseshoes. So bending horseshoes is a very niche activity within the grip sport world, where you take a horseshoe and you bend it. So you take and you basically straighten out the horseshoe. So I got into horseshoe bending for a while, and when you're doing horseshoe bending, you brace it on the outside of your thigh. And if you're wearing tracksuit bottoms or shorts that are a slick material, it can slide around a little bit. So I found that jeans were the perfect material that would give you sort of a bit of toughness. They're not going to tear, and also they give you a little bit of grip as well. So I was doing a lot of horseshoe bending with my jeans on. Funny story, side story. I was asked by my brother to bend a horseshoe into a heart at his wedding, like during the ceremony. And of course, I don't want to rip this rental suit that I have. So there's a really funny picture out there. So halfway through, just before they kind of, or maybe after they exchange vows, we're doing the speeches, readings at this wedding. And I do a reading, and then I pull down my trousers and have denim shorts underneath.
Well, they're like, of course you do. Was that no one was surprised?
And then,
And a rash
well,
guard
at the time,
underneath.
it was very early days of denim
Oh,
down.
I see,
So
okay.
yeah, and then bent this horseshoe, which is quite funny. But yeah, so I was training jeans a lot, and then when I was training at home, I was just like, it makes sense for me to work out in just what I'm normally wearing, you know. But I feel like people go to gym and they get changed out of their normal shoes, their normal socks, their normal trousers, their normal top, and they put on all of these things that they only wear in the gym. And I was like, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. I'm not going to Virgin Active and doing that. I'm just in my garage, so I can just work out in what I'm working out in. So I just started working out in jeans, and it started to feel really comfortable. And then one year, then sort of people started to clock on Instagram that I was working out in jeans all the time, not really asking too many questions about it. But then summer comes around, and they go, it's getting hot. You can't be training your jeans. And at that point, the Daisy Dukes come out. And the rest was history.
And he really does wear Daisy Dukes, which is
Yeah.
a massive
Yeah,
list.
So
but
do
that's
you know what?
so-
So actually, the Daisy Dukes, because believe it or not, there's not a lot of men's Daisy Dukes being made. So either you got to cut them yourself, or
Sorry.
you're right.
No,
You're just
I was
picturing
literally going to ask
Daryl in
you.
some Daisy Dukes.
No, I was about, my next question was, where do you find these? Where do you buy them?
Yeah. Okay. Well, either I make them myself, or I cut my own jeans.
Do you just
or,
rip them with your bare teeth and bare hands?
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
what you do.
Or they're women's. Yeah. Or they're women's shorts.
Ah.
But then there's not a lot of space for the parts of you that
It's
women
not how
don't
we
have.
design our shorts.
No.
So
It's all in the rear.
Exactly. So in collaboration with a jiu-jitsu brand, I have come up with the clothing line, which is basically the style of shorts that I wear for grappling, but they look like they're denim. So the denim shorts that I train with 99% of the time aren't actual denim. They look like denim.
Uh-huh.
So it's the power of denim, but with the functionality of Valetudo shorts.
We've got a
Functional
link
clothes.
to the shop as well for
Yeah.
the power of...
Yeah, scramblestuff.com, lumberjack range. We've got some denim hot pants and a checked
Pretty
rash
much
guard.
what you walked in today, but like you can go and train in this.
Well, look, exactly. So the way that it was is that I was working out, genuinely working out in these denim hot pants, cut denim, and a flannel shirt. And I was just, I was looking at myself. I think I went to the toilet halfway through a workout. And I thought, fucking hell, I look good.
Yeah.
thought I look really good. We should do something with this.
Yeah.
And I went into the garden afterwards, and I had someone take a photo of me in it. And I sent it, and I just put it on Instagram. I said, I think that Scramble should make this a no-gi grappling set, bombard them, and we made it happen.
How many pairs of denim shorts do you have at home?
Maybe 10.
Okay.
Maybe 10. But like denim's hard wearing. You wear the same.
Yeah.
You wear the same, denim.
But there's something interesting about, you said before about you didn't want to change going into the gym. Now, I'm curious about that. Is that like, I want to just be practically have as much efficiency as possible? Or
Nah,
is there
it's not an
something
efficiency
about,
thing.
Is there something about like the mindset? Like, I don't want to be a different person, that I just go training the rest of my life as a different mentality.
I want to be like ready to go on the
Ready to-
streets. Someone attacks me now, and I'm in what I'd be working out in. I'm ready to go right now. And then, maybe I have my hot pants on underneath.
Yeah,
so in
yeah.
case I need to grapple, I can tear these off.
Yeah.
But
Sorry,
actually,
can you just hold on 1 second?
there's this idea called enclosed cognition. You're a psychologist, you might know about it. You know enclosed cognition?
I've not come across the
Okay,
term.
enclosed
so
cognition
tell
is
me.
the idea of what you wear affects your psychology.
Enclothed cognition.
Enclosed cognition.
Yeah, I would totally buy that.
It is,
Yeah.
and it's true. So the study that it was they got groups in. They gave one group like painter's smocks, one a doctor's lab coat, and one a scientist's lab coat, and the painters were the ones that were given the painters were given tasks. They were found to be more creative. The ones given the doctor ones were found to be more empathetic, and the ones given the scientist ones were shown to be more logical. Of course, it's the same item of clothing. It's the same white lab coat that all three of them got, but they were just told that they were different things. You guys are the painters. You guys are the doctors. You guys are the scientists. So it's not what you wear. It's what you believe what you wear means, right? So for me, what denim means is denim was designed. I mean, now it's a fashion thing, very much so. But denim is designed as like a hard working man's clothes. They're hard wearing. You can get them dirty. You wash it off. They're tough. So when I wear denim, I feel like I can put in hard work. When I wear tracksuit bottoms, that for me psychologically, so when I do seminar tours and I'm traveling around the country and I can't train my own gym. What I found was gyms get upset if you train in jeans.
There's normally a sign that says no jeans.
Yeah, it happens. So I've been asked to leave a few gyms. So I can get in and get out and not have to worry about it. I'll wear tracksuit bottoms, and I do not enjoy doing any exercise in tracksuit. There's no exercise that I like to do in tracksuit bottoms. Whereas when I put jeans on, I was training recently and I was wearing different things. So I'm either wearing long jeans or I'm wearing the denim look Valley Tudo shorts, the hot pants, but different exercises for different things. And I remember I was getting back into doing back squats, and they were feeling okay. I'm in my Valley Tudo shorts, the tight hot pants, and I put my jeans on over the top and I go, I'm stronger.
Really?
Like that. I
Really?
feel better. I feel stronger right now. So yeah.
That's so weird. I mean, I obviously am wearing gym clothes right now.
Mm.
I have taught classes to clients, and I've been to clients' houses, and I feel like if I turned up in my jeans, they'd be like, well, you're not really a serious trainer. But I have like different outfits for different, I guess, things. And if I'm teaching, like this morning I taught quite a busy class, and like I do feel better, and I do feel like I train harder when I feel more confident in what I'm wearing in the gym versus if I feel like I've thrown on something that I don't feel that good in. I tend to not have such a good work. I don't know.
100%. And that's the whole thing. It's not about what you wear. It's about how you perceive what you wear.
Yeah.
So it's not, if you were to wear jeans and work out, you probably would have a bad workout because maybe you associate gym clothes with that lifestyle.
I definitely do.
So it's about everyone. The whole denim thing, although I've had a lot of people now will work out in jeans or in hot pants because of me, which I think is great. But I just need to come out with my own actual jean denim line, which is great. But ultimately the takeaway is
with a zip around them, so like puff-up jeans.
Exactly, yeah.
Like the Kappa Popper trousers.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
someone
it.
can like rip them open.
Exactly. But I guess the main takeaway is don't conform to what society thinks that you should be wearing for any given task, but instead conform to what you believe would be better for yourself. Yeah. That's the main takeaway there.
Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, so weird.
there's this idea in psychology about parts as well, that all of us have different identity. We have, and so there's one school of thought that you have a universal identity and personality. And actually, maybe a more mainstream thing now is that we have different versions of ourselves for different tasks and different people. So you go into work and you feel like a different version of Gemma than you go to the gym. Or you go into the gym, and it sounds like for you, you've got these different parts, but they're very closely aligned, actually. Like, there's not a huge mental shift for you between going into the cave, between going to grappling somewhere, to doing a seminar, to walking here. There's is synchrony, and another word they use for it is it's everything is really integrative. All these parts closely align with each other. They make sense with each other. There's not a big shift for you. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting topic. I'll mention something else kind of with that, but I think that we do have that, and I think it's important to have I actually think it's useful to have separate beings, separate parts of yourself for different things. But if there's too much disconnection between them all, then you can struggle to manipulate between them fluidly. And obviously, the more you practice that. But kind of on the same topic, I remember when I was competing early, and I became very aware of the fact that the person that I needed to be to compete at a high level in jiu-jitsu, like I'm fighting, I'm trying to choke someone unconscious, I'm trying to break their arm, I'm trying to break their leg until they submit. That person. So people
get it, like a competition in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, competition.
You're not just
jiu-jitsu.
playing with each other.
You're going for it. Yeah, I mean, so jiu-jitsu, for those who don't know, it's a grappling art. So there's no striking, but the goal is to wrestle someone to the ground, to put them in, to control them physically, to put them into a position where they are, basically unable to do anything, and then eventually to put them into what we would call a submission, which is either there's two types, which would be a choke. So you're cutting off that oxygenated blood to the brain, forcing them to submit, or they'll pass out. Or you take one of their limbs, it can be wrist, it can be elbow, it can be shoulder, it can be knee, it can be ankle, it can be the spine, and put them into a position where if they don't, quit, then you're going to cause damage to that joint. That is what jiu-jitsu is.
Why are you looking at me?
I say it's brutal, isn't it? Like,
it's brutal, yeah.
I think jiu-jitsu has this rap of it's such a friendly thing, and I think it's been so welcome, so universal. But the primitive bit of it, I'm really curious to go with mindset into this, because I think so much we talk about in the podcast is about, this is why I'm nodding, because we talk about discomfort and the discomfort zone and what it takes to get into that place of discomfort. But this is the ultimate challenge of
I don't think
body
people
on body.
really put themselves, I think very few people push themselves into real discomfort. Like, discomfort for me is what you're talking about. Like, I like to push myself, but most people think they're pushing themselves into the discomfort zone. I'd say are probably going like 1 or 2% outside of their regular like comfort level. So they'll work a little bit harder, or they'll do one thing extra. And we talk about that as a good thing, right? Yes. But then like, I find it amazing when people can put themselves into that much of an uncomfortable situation.
But the key thing that you've mentioned here is the difference between putting themselves and someone else.
Oh, I see. But you're still like allowing yourself to be in that. Oh no.
Well, the discomfort, the discomfort part. No. You are. You're putting yourself in an environment where you could. But the big difference is if you're running. Yeah. To push yourself to that level of discomfort is almost impossible.
Right.
Because it's always driven by yourself. Yeah. Right. Whereas you have someone who is chasing you, that's very different. They're going to chase you and they're going to kill you. That's going to be a very, very different experience. So the discomfort doesn't come from within you. It comes from externally.
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu is not, there's no discomfort in jiu-jitsu until you're getting beaten up.
Right.
Until you've got someone on top of you, until they're crushing you, until they're purposefully trying to make your life as uncomfortable as possible. You talk about discomfort. Discomfort is a tool. It is a weapon that is wielded in jiu-jitsu. I literally teach people, get to a position. So a position in jiu-jitsu that I've been focusing a lot on, primarily over the last 6-9 months, a position that I didn't really like before, no gi, but I'm loving at the moment, is the mount position. So mount position is you're on your back, someone is sitting on top of you, over your chest, and they're looking to control you and then to submit you from there. And more than any other position in jiu-jitsu, I believe that the mount position is one where you should utilize discomfort of your opponent, to break them psychologically. Call it cooking them. You get them to a position where you can hold them somewhere they don't want to be, and then you keep them there on purpose. And you continue to hold them there until they start to mentally break. So it's discomfort on a level that I think is essentially unattainable, trying to do internally to push yourself through that. But when someone's on top of you, it's it's torturous. Yeah.
What makes you uncomfortable?
Someone gets mount on me, that's pretty
Is that
uncomfortable.
What about outside of that? What about outside of jiu-jitsu? Or maybe it's in jiu-jitsu.
Do you know what? I think one of the things about jiu-jitsu, one of the advantages is when you've done jiu-jitsu for a while, and obviously when you begin, you're in discomfort a lot more.
Yeah.
And then as you get better, hopefully you're doing it less. But once you go through the ringer of jiu-jitsu for a few years, stuff outside and other things are very difficult to come close to it because of that level of discomfort. Because what could it be? What really could you be? I mean, look, doing broadcast stuff, if you're not used to it before, I think one of the strongest reactions that we have against things is public humiliation. That's like a deeply intuitive, primitive thing. You get excluded from your tribe, you're on your own, you're dead. Yeah. So like we do not like as a species, we have evolved to dislike public humiliation. So when you're in front of a lot of people, so when you're doing TV stuff and they're going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're live and you're looking down a camera and you don't want to go blah, 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 that's uncomfortable, but it's a very different kind of discomfort. And you do it a couple of times and you get used to it and it becomes better every single time. But jiu-jitsu is really hard. There's very few things in the world that are gonna that are so perfectly epitomize the term discomfort than getting your ass properly handed to you on a jiu-jitsu mat. Really, really struggle.
It sounds like sharpening your stone. Every time you go into that discomfort place, you sharpen your stone more and more and more. And then you're saying, actually, nothing else feels that sharp. That the highest end, because you've competed in lots of different events around the world. When you go into that, you're saying that's the absolute pinnacle. How do you manage the mindset then? Because you're always a pretty friendly, cheery guy.
Okay, but
this has got to be different going into this space.
You've done a fantastic job there of segueing back to what I was talking about before we went off topic.
I was just thinking, we're so different. You're so articulate, and I'm just like,
no, it's not that.
What do you eat for breakfast?
I don't know whether you did it on purpose, but I was talking about jiu-jitsu and the mindset you have to be in jiu-jitsu, and then we started talking about discomfort, and I wanted to get back to that, and you got back to it perfectly. So spot on. So the question about how you like, I'm pretty. So what I realized early on is that I had to be in a certain mindset to be able to compete at high level in jiu-jitsu, and the place that I needed to be, because when I was sort of in my late teens and I was kind of finding my way a little bit, I kind of played around with that optimal state of arousal stuff. Do you want to be super hyped up? Do you want to be super relaxed? I do one tournament. I remember one. You remember your lessons. And I remember one where there's a MMA fighter that I was a big fan of at the time called Vanderlei Silva. He was the axe murderer. He's super intense guy. He just kind of throw down. And I sort of tried to harness the axe murderer. I was 16 or 17, I think. And I remember hyping myself up pre-fight so much that I got like completely overshot that adrenaline. I've got tunnel vision. I can't hear anything. I run out there, boom, I get submitted straight away. I'm like, okay, don't do that. Next time I come through and I'm listening to Vivaldi, I'm listening to Mozart, I'm relaxed, I'm cool as a cucumber. I come out, there's no adrenaline at all, and I get smashed because I'm not half asleep. Yeah. And I go, okay, we've got to find somewhere in the middle there. So once I found that sort of calibrated that optimal state, and then I realized the optimal state that I need to compete is an unpleasant human being the rest of the time, right? It's not a nice person to be around. So for my early 20s, I was a bit of a prick, to be honest with you, because there was no disconnect between who I believed that I needed to be. There was also there were other aspects of that, which was I started teaching jiu-jitsu when I was 16. I weighed 55 kilos. I was a very small, skinny kid. And I was teaching adults at 16. I was like a blue belt. So I was being tested by adults coming in. Who the fuck does this kid think he is to teach me jiu-jitsu? I felt like I had to earn respect every single day. And I think probably when I got past that point, I maybe still had a chip on my shoulder about I had to command respect, like what maybe a lot of youngsters these days think that they need to do to be the alpha. You're going to talk back to me, I'm going to humiliate you. I'm going to talk, I'm going to like bully everyone basically. not like, but like adults. I put a 19 years old, 30-year-old man's talking. Go sit in the corner. I do that in class when I was teaching. Just like douchey stuff. I mean, they would probably deserved it, but it's irrespective. So then what I consciously worked on was creating a separation between who I needed to be, the Raspberry Ape, and Daniel Strauss.
Is that where the Raspberry Ape started around that time? He was created, or he came to you?
That's just was his name. But I think I already maybe had the Raspberry Ape name, or it sort of doesn't matter whether the nickname became before and after. That was just I was, long story short on the name. I was put in a magazine, and I was given a draft of this bio, and they made up a nickname. I was training a lot of the grip at the time, the Gorilla. I go, that's a shit nickname. It's very generic. I need something that's very unique. And me and my friend come up with the Raspberry Ape. You search Raspberry Ape, you're only going to get me. So you need something unique. So that's where it came up. And whether that fighting persona was made after that and therefore attributed to Raspberry Ape, or it already existed, now it just had a name. But whatever it was, for me, you had the Raspberry Ape and then you had Daniel Strauss. And Daniel Strauss didn't have to be a dick. Daniel Strauss could be really chill, could be nice to everyone, could be smiley and friendly, but Daniel Strauss didn't have the fight. He's a different person.
This is when I talked about these different personalities, because we all have this. And I think it's a really there's the healthy optimization of it. The other bit you talked about in having different states of arousal, or optimizing your state of alertness, is something that I try and teach people in coaching. And Gemma, you try and teach people in physical fitness, actually, is an unhealthy thing is not knowing how to shift your arousal. Because if you're in a really kind of flat place and you can't bring yourself out, that's another word for depression. If you're really hyped up and you can't bring yourself back down again, it's another version for anxiety or mania. So this kind of ability it is a psychological skill that I don't think, even in the therapy world, has been talked about enough. It's beginning to the last couple of years that this is one of the skills people need in life. Yeah. Your version is like in the heightest survival mode when someone's actually, because it must feel like someone's trying to kill you. I've done jujitsu for 5 years or so. And when you're in that place, there's a part of you that kind of goes back to that primal state that when someone's arms around your neck, they are trying to do something to you.
Yeah, I guess for me, the Raspberry Ape's a predator, not prey.
Oh, okay.
It's about going to kill, right? And
your eyes changes. Your eyes changes. You say it.
That's a different. Mental. I'm just gonna freak out on the mic now. So that is the mentality that I need to get into, and I think if people don't have the ability to create that separation between the two, they either are not able to tap into. When I say predator is like a dirty word because we attribute it to things that are not very nice, but the idea of sort of the archetypal warrior archetype, the predator, the go out and get it, the aggression that you need to succeed in business or other things or in sport, whatever. If you try and walk with that day to day, you become an unpleasant person, which is a problem that we have. And if you're unable to access that at all, then you're a bit meek and you're a bit weak, which is another problem that we have. We're sort of kind of split on this spectrum where we have people who are living with the, maybe if you want to go sort of in that direction, sort of Robert Moore, like you have warrior on one side and lover on the other side, and the lover can't access that warrior energy, warrior can't access that lover energy, and you've got this massive imbalance between the two. Too much like overpower over strength, and then too much weakness and gentleness, and you've got to be able to find the balance between the two of those things, of course. So for me, it was something that I focused on and like studied a bit of psychology and worked on being able to access between the two, and the greater separation that I could have until I like almost like a cell splitting into two. Eventually I could pull them apart. They could sit next to each other, or I'd say the way that I would describe it is one's in the back seat, one's in the front seat. So it meant that when I was on competition day, I had supreme confidence. When I was competing a lot, I had supreme confidence in my ability to access that. So a lot of people get very, very anxious before they compete because they're like, they're trying to morph from let's use my example. It would be like me trying to morph from Daniel Strauss to the Raspberry Ape throughout a period of how long? And is it a couple of days? Is it a week? Is it 3 hours? Is it 10 minutes before? So you're just expecting where you like slowly transform like a werewolf over however long you think it needs to. So you start getting worried, like, am I transforming too fast? Am I not going to transform at all? Am I not going to make it to my final form? Whereas I was really confident. I was like, I don't need to transform. It's just him. It's not me. So all I would have to do, I remember one big competition. I was headlining a show up in the north. I was taking on like a local legend of jiu-jitsu up there. and I fell asleep. Half an hour before I was sitting out in the audience, and I'm here, and I fell asleep. I was super relaxed because I had the confidence that I could 10, 15, 20 minutes before, whenever I chose, I can use my visual cue, I can step in, and I'm driving, I pull over, I get out, he gets in the driver's seat, I get in the back seat, and then we go. As simple as that.
What's your visual cue?
The visual cue that I use, I'm not sure how long, it's a particular song that I use, same song. So if I hear it on the radio, I like, turn it off quick. I'm
driving in traffic here.
Yeah. So it's a music. It's a visualization. I use the same. It's an interesting one. I won't get into too much detail because I think that people can get bogged down on like what that is. I worked with a sports psychologist to build that cue.
I was going to ask how you found that.
I worked with a sports psychologist, so it was like a visualization cue. It was a physical cue. It was a word, and I can step into that pretty fast. But I use the same. I use similar thing like day to day, not as intensely to go into a fight, but like if I want to lift something very heavy, I use the visualization of the same thing. Let's say I'm going to do a heavy squat, so like I'll close my eyes and maybe I'll get into a position, like not in the squat, and I'll visualize myself being the ape is a great example because it's a big strong thing.
Yeah.
So I become this big ape, and then I'm like pick up a car and I start squatting a car. Like I just like in my head I just squatted a car. I can go and squat this sandbag or barbell or whatever. So I do use that like as something that I can quickly utilize just to get myself into a more powerful state straight away. And then the one for competition is a slightly more extreme version where I'm like I'm gonna step into this and now I'm a different person until this match is over.
It's really interesting.
And what then you can? Oh, sorry, but then you can just wind down after as well, or do you feel like?
Yeah, we just pull over again.
That's it.
Get in the back seat. You're done for the day. Well done, and I'll take us from here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about jiu-jitsu competition, but I think this is something people face a lot in life. So I meet a lot of people who feel they have a big important presentation or meeting coming up, and there's a huge amount of anxiety that can be born with that. Can I trust myself that I will be ready for this? And so where rumination comes out, like I need to overthink this and overplan, is I need to mentally rehearse time and time again. I need to step back into that place and I know what I'm going to say and I'm going to be that person I need to be for that meeting. And I'll slip back into with the kids or with other things. Oh, this meeting's coming up. Can I step back into it? And the trust in I can step into that place isn't there.
Yep.
And that's where I find quite a lot of performance anxiety. That's one of the ideas behind it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could. I could only assume. I feel like the ability for me to do that has given me the ability to walk through life without being an art. Like I can be nice to people, and then I can turn it on when I need to. The confidence that I'm going to be able to do that when the time comes, and I think that applies to. That can apply to anything. That could be I've got to go and I've got to absolutely smash this meeting. I've got to do this presentation, but you're like, who does this? I've just got to kind of, I don't really feel like I'm good at. Then you got to build a persona, and the beauty is you can build that almost like you're making a character in GTA. I can build it like they look like this. One of the things that I work with with the sports psychologist, because I had this originally when I heard about athletes working sports psychologists. I'm like, you work with the sports psychologist because you're weak. It's like the equivalent of going to a physio, and you go, no, it's not. It's equivalent of going to a personal trainer for your mind. It's very different things, right? So, everyone goes that it's 90% mental, but then you train 100% physically. It's crazy actually. Yeah. You've got to train that psychological stuff. So, for example, you use visualization. You visualize the person that you want to be. How do they walk through the world? How do they act? How do they shake hands with people when they step on the mat? Stuff like that. So anyone can do this. If you work with a professional, it's going to be easier. But anyone can do this stuff themselves in their own head. But build maybe you walk with not good posture and you kind of you're a little bit timid, and you visualize this person who has to go and do this board meeting, and you make up a name. You go, I don't know, Matt the genius, or Matt the CEO or whatever, and you close your eyes and you visualize this person. And he walks with his chin held high and his chest open like this, and his hands clasped in front of him, and he speaks really eloquently, and he's really confident. And someone says something, and he comes back with a really witty remark, and everyone laughs, and the guy's like, oh shit, I shouldn't say anything to him. And then you just work on building that person, and then you work on creating a bridge to become that person, and then you practice that. This isn't something I did in one session. It was something that I'd go home and I'd practice. I'd do my word, I'd do my visualization, I'd do my stepping into this position, and then I can do in it, and then I come back out of it. So I'm practicing this. You don't get good at anything without practicing.
Yeah.
So you practice, you can get good at it, and then eventually you have the confidence both from practice and maybe some application first time, and then you have you have a superpower almost. It might, like, you can transform in the same way that a Superman and a clock they act very different. You have the ability to do that to a certain degree. It's all in your head.
And then the amazing thing is it's in your head, but it's actually in your body, because the 90% mental to the 100% physical thing you said. Well, our brain is not separate from our body.
Yeah.
Our nervous system is tied, and particularly our autonomic nervous system. So if you can really believe that, the body is convinced.
Yeah.
So the body is convinced if you feel capable, the body will give you the right hormones and the right ability. If you can fully dial up your energy levels, your body will feel strong. It will be stronger.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people underestimate. I did a podcast with a guy yesterday, and we were talking a lot about neuroscience. That was sort of his whole take on exercise. Really good podcast, actually.
What's your podcast called?
It's called the Raspberry Ape Podcast.
Okay.
Shocker. Staying on brand. But we did this episode. We're talking a lot about neurochemicals, and like basically everything that we do is based on the levels of these different neurochemicals. And you want to be able to do something, your body needs to think that it's worth it to give you the chemicals to get the drive to go and do that thing. So what I think people don't understand, they don't understand the power of their own mind. So they don't understand the advantage that they can get from training their mind. Like the placebo effect, for example, which can create measurable changes in your physiology. It's not just, people have this separation between psychology and physiology, between what they think and feel and what their body actually can do. These things are connected. Your psychology can affect your physiology. You see people with multiple personality disorders who one of their personalities has eczema or hives or something, and the other one doesn't. And when they become this person, or they're allergic to something and the other one doesn't, and they react to it. This is the same body, the same skin reacts to things differently depending on this personality change. So it just goes to show, like, the disconnect that most people believe there is between psychology and physiology is not there. It is deeply, deeply tied together. So by training your psychology, you can physically change your physiology.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, a different one, that a client sent me, with a guy called Dr. Gary Becker. Do you know who he is?
Rings a bell.
He's a human biologist, and he is known for being the guy that can predict within almost minutes a person's death. So he worked for insurance companies for like 50 or 30 odd years. And he basically, because he's got this weird thing called, it's not photographic memory, it's like something photographic. So he's read thousands and thousands of journals. He's worked in insurance for 30 something years. He's a human biologist, he's a scientist, and he can literally see based on lots of patterns, like the pattern someone's going to have in terms of their lifespan and their mortality. And he was talking about this, and he was talking about like intolerances and allergies and people's nervous systems and anxiety, and saying that 99% of times when he talks to somebody who says like they've got this kind of anxiety and they can't quite go into something with like full confidence and they've got these issues, he'll say to them, well, the pattern, is it a consistent pattern, or is it fluid? Does it sometimes come up and down? If, for example, they'll say, I've got an intolerance to dairy, and I say, okay, well, every time you eat dairy, does the same thing happen? It's like, well, no, I'm not always, but sometimes. And he sort of said, well, you can't be allergic to something sometimes. You are either allergic or you're not. It's a reaction because it's something else is going on inside you from like an anxiety perspective or something else that is then using that as a reaction rather than than an actual allergy, or it's all to do with anxiety. Anyways, it was really interesting. And like what you said, he said that most people don't actually go into anything believing they have a measure of success. They don't go to a doctor to think they're going to go get something cured. They go to a doctor because they think they're going to give them a pill to manage something that they have. They'll go to the hospital to go and treat a condition that they think they'll have to get under control. They don't go into anything and think, oh, in my mind, I could literally change my state of being just by believing
Absolutely.
I could nail it. I just think it's fascinating because I think for me, I'm listening to you and in my head, this is where I go. I'm like, I wonder if I could do jujitsu. I wonder if I could do this. Do you think anyone could with the mindset? Because there's obviously a physiological part of this where like you've got to be relatively...
Look, the physical part of jiu-jitsu it's physically taxing. Do I think anyone can do it? Yeah, I think anyone can do it. I don't think anyone will do it because it's tough. It's frustrating. It's highly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, even forget about someone's crushing you on top or, you know, choking you or something like that. I took a very good friend of mine. I have very few friends outside of jiu-jitsu, but one of my closest friends outside jiu-jitsu, I took him to a class many, many years ago to try and get him into it because you love something so much you want everyone to do it. And the first lesson he's sparring with someone and they're sweating in his mouth, he's like, fuck this, I'm never ever going back. And it's like stuff like that. People just think it's not for me. And some people love that stuff. They love the rough and tumble of it. So, I mean, there's only ever one way to find out. Which is to try it.
Yeah.
What I always say to people who are interested in doing jiu-jitsu, if you go and you don't enjoy it for whatever reason, go try a different gym, because the environment that you're in and the way that you're training and who you're training with can have such a big impact on your experience that I feel like a lot of people will go and try something, not enjoy it, and then just assume that their experience is indicative of the entire experience of jiu-jitsu, whereas it's just going to be specific to whoever that you're whoever you're training with at the gym or the people and stuff like that. So yeah, if anyone wants to try jiu-jitsu, try jiu-jitsu. If you love it, amazing. If you hate it, try another gym.
Okay.
If you hate that one as well, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah. That's
Amazing.
a good note. That's a good note.
I mean, I feel like from this podcast, there's been so many different things that we're all about here, trying new things, or at least just if you're in the intention of pushing yourself and in growing, then we're saying you've got to go to the discomfort zone. It's the only place you can go to grow. There has to be some element of uncomfortability. And I think we've taken so much from today. We're running out of time right now. And I'm just thinking, I just want to ask you so much more. So I think we're going to have to end in a second. But I think maybe closing remarks and we'll get there.
Sure.
And maybe even we'll get you back sometime because
I'll come back
there's
anytime.
so much more to talk about.
I enjoy being in the studio so much. You can come back anytime. It would be my pleasure.
It's very cozy in here, isn't it?
Like from us, it's been absolutely amazing to have you on because I think actually there's so much to pick out here. And as a listener, I'm hoping what you're taking from this are some of the importance of the psychology behind physicality and also some of the incredible, I had a really good friend who says to me, whenever he comes against someone who feels more impressive than them, he says, well, that person wears trousers just like I do. You are a human being, yet you do the most incredible things.
He doesn't wear trousers, he wears
But
shorts. Fact. Get it right.
So where can people follow you to keep hearing more about what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. So best place really is Instagram. My Instagram is @Raspberry_Ape. I have a YouTube channel. It's mainly, there are a couple of videos on there, but it's mainly my podcast, which is youtube.com/Raspberry Ape. The podcast can be found on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever else you get your podcasts. My website is raspberryape.com, although there's not much on there at the moment. I've got another website, which is apeacademyonline.com, which is some instructionals. I've got like a grip training instructional, sandbag training instructional, and one jiu-jitsu guillotine instructional, and that's about it. But yeah, you find most of myself on my Instagram, which is Instagram @Raspberry_Ape.
And if you want to keep following us, we're at myself at Dr. Matt Slavin on socials.
Yep, and we are at Nadiva Gemma Fit or at Gemma_Isaacs. And also, please download the podcast, The Discomfort Zone, on Spotify, on Apple, and again on YouTube. And we are really grateful for your continued support and thank you for listening. And we can't wait to see you next week. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.